Okay, welcome everyone to our latest webinar this week. We're very fortunate to have Christine Nicholson. Say hello, Christine.
Hi, everybody.
So Christine's going to speak on one of her specialist subjects. We're very fortunate, as I said, because she's a speaker, a presenter. You know, she's a bit of an expert in multiple areas. I'll let her introduce you to introduce herself to you, and then over to you, Christine.
Hi, let me just share my screen. And okay, so hi everybody. My name is Christine Nicholson. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm UK Business Mentor of the Year, and there's pretty much nothing that I haven't experienced in business as a business owner, but I didn't start out as a business owner. I did start out as an employee. So what I want to talk to you about today is about understanding whether you're in the right job and how you recognize this and how you recognize your position in an organization. Now, one of the challenges that business owners have is getting the right people into their business, because they start something and it becomes their baby and they don't kind of want to let it go. But they need to bring the right people in to enable them to grow and develop the full potential of their business. But actually, when they're bringing people into their team, it's really about developing not just the full potential of their business, but of themselves and of the people that they bring in. Because so many businesses have good people that aren't actually in the right roles, so that it's not really a good fit. And as a business owner myself, I've experienced this challenge firsthand, where I've recruited really great people, but we've managed to get them in the wrong roles. And what I'm going to talk about today is about those roles, about how you fit, how you become a good employee, how you become a better boss, and actually resolve some of the situations that you might find yourself in that allows your business to grow faster. So today on the agenda, what I really want to cover is the various roles in an organization, what the essentials are for an effective business, how you find the right people, and then just to run through a really quick case study about how it worked really well in real life. And just to be clear, that's taking a company that was completely dysfunctional and it had all the right components, but they just weren't mixed in the right way, almost like putting all the ingredients for a cake in a bowl, but actually mixing it wrong, and how they actually came out of that. So as I said at the beginning, my name's Christine Nicholson. I'm UK Business Mentor of the Year. I've written 4 books on business, and I speak on business. I actually run my own businesses and I work with business owners, and I've been doing this for 30 years, building businesses for myself and for others, so that they can be creating more value and ultimately allowing the business owner to either hand over to the next generation, hand over to their management team, or ultimately sell their business at some point in the future. And fundamentally, I'm an exit and succession planning expert. Now, there's some really key roles in an organization. The one that I want to really start off with is the business owner. Because as the business owner themselves often have 3 roles. They own the business, they direct or control it, and then they invariably are doing some work in it. And when a business owner starts, they generally start out on their own, and those 3 roles are so bundled together with activity, and mentally they're all combined. So they're really welded together and they become one identity for the business owner. And the longer these identities get bundled together, the harder it is to create any form of separation. But as a business owner brings in more people into their company and they're building a team, this part of what they will be doing as a job, they'll have to kind of let go of, because they have to let other people do it. But it's still that feeling of letting go. And ultimately, when they build a big enough team, they're going to have to hand over some of the control of their company to other directors. Actually, the company is going to become bigger than they can control, and they're going to have to start seeing other people with authority and with responsibility who've got their own identities coming into their organization. But if you're coming into an organization that is owner managed or owner led, then you'll see behavior in your business owner that will merge these three roles. Like, you tolerate that certain things from a business owner when they're doing the job because they're the business owner that you simply wouldn't tolerate from anybody else. Now, you as the employee might see this, but then you might feel there's nothing you can do about it. And if there's really no transparency on the roles that the business owner is doing, then you can kind of feel like there's one rule for the boss or the owner, and then there's a different rule for us. And this sometimes appears in things like, working hours are 9 till 5:30, but the boss is allowed to roll in at 10. And it's, well, because he owns the place, but he's actually doing a job. And it's actually recognizing the differences in roles that makes an effective business easier for you as an employee to be in, and also for you as a business owner to be in. So what are the roles? Well, as the owner, you're the shareholder, and fundamentally, you have an obligation to invest a certain amount of money of your choice into the business and to set the strategic direction so that the business directors can then deliver that strategic objective, and more importantly, give you as the business owner the return on your capital. Because as a shareholder, you've generally, because you've started the business, you've put in the time and the effort and the energy. You've made a lot of sacrifices, and probably a lot of sacrifices that most of your employees actually never see. But equally, generally, when you've started the business yourself, you're also the board of directors, and quite often in an owner managed business, there's just the one of you. And that can cause its own challenges, because directors have responsibility for managing the direction of the business, and reporting and being responsible to the shareholders. But if you're a director and you're the shareholder, then you're basically accountable to yourself, and there's where quite a lot of problems start. But directors are actually appointed by the shareholders. So even when the shareholders start to take a back seat from day-to-day operations and they bring in new directors, they need to be very careful about appointing the right directors. So the shareholder appoints the directors to manage the day-to-day affairs of the business and to fulfill the strategic direction that the business owner has set. Now, when you've got more than one director, the directors actually work together as a board, but they'll individually have their own authority, they'll have their own responsibilities, and they'll certainly have their own accountability. And the only real difference between a shareholder's responsibilities and the duties of those of the directors is that the director has a legal liability. So if something goes wrong in the business, the shareholder is high and dry, but the director is absolutely in the mire. When things go wrong, it's the director's fault. And as the company grows, then those liabilities do tend to increase as well. So what's the third role of a business owner? Sorry, I keep forgetting to change my slides. The third role of business owner is generally they are working in their business, doing some kind of job that they could easily get someone else to do, but they choose not to. And you often find this in organizations where the business owner is a technician of some kind. It's like they started their business because this is what they love. And as they grow and they move further away from the customers and into doing more management and compliance work, they tend to not be quite so happy because they're not doing exactly what they love. But as employees, employees have a responsibility to give a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And employees are, as they grow in a business, they're usually one of the company's main assets, but equally, they're also the biggest costs. And when a team of employees know exactly what their roles and responsibilities are and what's expected of them to generate revenue, to generate profit, to generate value in the business, they tend to work really well together and become greater than the sum of their parts. So effectively, one person working on their own may generate a particular level of profit, but actually a team of people, let's say 5 people, will certainly generate more than 5 times the profit of the individual employee. Now, some employees are technical experts and they're expected to bring together their expertise. Excuse me. Whereas some employees might be generalists, and certainly some employees will be coming in at an entry level and they'll have some skills, but they'll be developing their skills as they go along. But often what happens is the employees always have to go back to a single business owner or director for decision making. Quite often, whilst they might know what they need to do, to actually get anything done, they need to have this authority or this approval from one person who, if they're the business owner, they're kind of now got a stranglehold of the growth of the business, which means they also have a stranglehold on the growth of the employees. Now, work culture is led by the directors and business owners, but it's actually the responsibility of all of the employees. Employees have an obligation to comply with policies and regulations and be respectful of one another within the workplace. Now, it's the directors that need to make sure that that happens, but it's the employees' responsibility to do that. And employees play a big role in all of the business activities, including profitability. Yet often what you'll find is that there's a lack of visibility between what the business owner or a director is exposed to and what the employees are what's shared with the employees. And in really good, really effective businesses, the employees are open to, not, I wouldn't say everything, but they're open to a lot more of the commercial information. They understand what they need to do, where they fit in the organization, and what's expected of them. Now, employees also have rights, and they have those rights as a matter of law. So they have a right to work in a safe place. And as a business owner and a director, you have a duty to provide them with a safe place to work. But employees aren't completely without obligation here. They have a duty also to make use of safety equipment, to maintain a safe place of work. So having been provided with a safe place of work, safe place to work, it's an obligation for them to keep it that way. And employees are entitled to a number of legal protections. So they're entitled to having appropriate rest breaks. They're entitled to holiday. They're not obligated to work outside of the contracted hours, for example. And they have a lot of protection from unfair dismissal. And this usually scares business owners that employees have this protection. But to be honest, if you're a business owner who's operating at best practice, you don't have employees who are likely to take you to tribunal because you never find it necessary to treat them unfairly. Now, there are a number of ways that that companies are organized, and this on the screen, which is a departmental structure, may be something that is really common. It may be something that you've already seen. If you haven't seen an organizational structure as an employee, then go and ask, because it's really important that you understand what the hierarchy is so that you understand where you fit. An alternative organizational structure is this matrix structure, which happens a lot in project management and engineering companies, for example. But it means that you do have a line manager, you have a functional manager, but within a project you will possibly go and have a different manager for that particular project. And then when the project is finished, you will always come back to your organizational structure. Now, the reason why I bring that in is so that you can really see that where you fit into an organization is really important, because there's three really big elements of effective businesses. And the big one is obviously you need to know where you fit in as an individual and what is expected of you, so that you can actually perform at the peak. Because if you don't know what's expected of you, you're going to turn up to work and you go, well, what can I do today? Whereas if it's really clear what's required, and not just of you, but actually of your team, then not only can you see what you're doing, how it impacts on the team, if you actually see something else that needs to happen that will benefit the team, then you can actually have the initiative to go and do that do the right activities. So a lot of people I know tend to not take the initiative because they're afraid of what might be said. But if you actually understand the big picture, then not only will you understand what you need to do, but how that fits into what the team needs to do, and also then how that fits into the overall purpose of the company. And when this happens, this is where the magic happens, because if you know what you're doing and the team knows what they're doing and the company has thing, then there's a magic kind of overlap where you can simply work in flow. If you see a hiccup, if you see something that's not quite right, you know not only who to go to get it fixed, but also if it's within your power then and capability, you also know that you can step forward and you can do it. And that is where we get really, really effective organizations. Because let's face it, most organizations become a little bit dysfunctional, and it's usually because of the human beings that are in it. And it's not because the human beings are trying to be antagonistic to each other. It's just that they simply don't understand or don't know. So what this talk is actually about is really about finding the right people. And when I'm talking about the right people in your organization, I'm talking about the people who absolutely get it. They get what the business is about, and they want to pursue those strategic aims. And then even better than that, they're capable of it, either capable now or they've got the potential capability. Now, what that is all predicated on is actually understanding how all the cogs worked together. And that is only really predicated on everybody knowing how all those cogs work together and what the greater aim of the business is. So right at the beginning, I advertised this as emotional intelligence for business owners, leaders, and employees. So what is emotional intelligence? Well, there's massive loads of books written about emotional intelligence. The big one is, for anybody who's interested in it, is Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence. It's 25 years old now, and it's certainly well worth a read. But for me, emotional intelligence is all about understanding the 7 key characteristics of being a good employee. And that is also the 7 key characteristics of being a good boss. So this is really for employees and for business owners. So what are the 7 key characteristics? Well, before I go into any of them in great detail, you may want to pause the video for those that are listening to this on record and actually have a read of the 7 and actually just score yourself, maybe out of 5 or 10, to see where you fit into all of these characteristics, and how you would judge not only yourself, but actually how would you judge the other people in your team out of 5 or 10 on each of these characteristics, and then come back to the video, and we'll go through the individual characteristics, each one at a time. So, being a team player. Well, this is really all about making sure that you understand exactly what the team needs and are willing to be a participant in the team. That a really good high-performing team means that you're listened to, but it doesn't mean to say that everyone's going to agree with you. So being a team player is actually participating, contributing, and then not taking it personally when your idea maybe isn't the one that is pursued, but actually just being willing to work with other people. And that doesn't mean stepping back and being a wallflower. It does mean actually actively participating in activities when it's when you feel that your skills can come to bear. And I often say, when with people who are team players, is they pipe up, they say, hey, what about this? And they're not afraid of actually bringing forward what they might seem as, oh, I'm not going to say that because it's a stupid idea. Some of the best ideas that I've ever heard started off as a stupid idea. And then when they were rolled around and the corners knocked off them and we repositioned things, actually that there was a kernel of real gold in there. So being a team player is not just about putting your own ideas forward. It's about listening to other people's ideas. It's about giving and taking and actually being completely willing to participate. So the second key characteristic for me in an ideal employee and an ideal boss is staying calm in a crisis. And this is really one of the skills that highly emotionally intelligent people commit to. It's keeping cool and helping others around you do the same, helping them keep calm and taking the drama out of a crisis. Being calm develops and builds trust much more easily and much more quickly between departments, between people. It simply means not overreacting when things don't go quite so well. It means not losing your temper or shouting if things go wrong. And it means if not losing your temper or sulking if somebody doesn't do what you want them to do, and bringing reason to the situation. It means taking into consideration what needs to happen if all the drama was removed out of the situation. And it certainly comes back to another characteristic that I've already mentioned once before, which is absolutely not taking anything personally. So the next characteristic is really about accepting feedback as a way to learn. Now, I know from when I was very young, I was in the military when I joined the military when I was 19. And it was really difficult to accept feedback as anything other than criticism, because the feedback was literally barked at you. You know, it's what on earth do you think you were doing? Why were you doing that? It was, you know, transmitted, you know, full sergeant major mode. Now, feedback is often perceived as criticism, and it can be a challenge to, if particularly when you're first starting, you might make many mistakes and you might think that, you know, oh my goodness, I wish I hadn't done that, but your ego will start to step in. But making mistakes, I guarantee, so this is for bosses and employees alike, making mistakes is absolutely the fastest way to learn, as long as you learn from the mistakes that you make and you don't keep making them over and over again. So being told to do something in a different way or in a better way and being guided should actually be treated like a gift, not as criticism. again, it's another sign of really highly emotionally intelligent people that they take feedback as an opportunity to learn. So sometimes actually a better way to accept feedback is, rather than wait for it, is to actually ask. Go and ask other people, but equally you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, could your work be of a better quality? You know, is there something that you're doing because you're rushing, because you're trying to please people, or because you feel this time pressure, which means that you're not doing things accurately? Or are you just bored and therefore not interested? Could you actually be behaving more professionally? And actually being told that wasn't very professional, or this is not acceptable behavior, allows you to really look at yourself. Are you hitting deadlines? If you're constantly failing to hit deadlines, then you have to look at why that is. Is it because you're spending too much time on something else? Is it because you literally don't have the time? And at least in that case, you can go and speak to your supervisor. And are you working productively and effectively? Is there something that's causing distraction to you, that is causing you to make mistakes? And then this is the big one. Simply asking yourself, what could you do to make your work actually stand out more? And asking yourself that, and asking others that, might give you some insights into how to learn more. But certainly accepting feedback graciously and saying, okay, now what can I do about that, is definitely one way to be a really high value employee who's showing high levels of emotional intelligence. Now, this is my favorite: be action orientated. There's successful people come in all shapes and sizes, but there's absolutely one golden thread that connects them all, is action. They don't procrastinate. They do take time to think, but they eventually actually do get on and do something. Now, how many of you have heard someone say, oh, I had that idea before they did, and I could have been a billionaire? And they might have done, they might have had that idea, they might have even had a better idea, but they didn't execute it. So knowledge is nothing without action, and really successful, highly emotionally intelligent people are action orientated. And this is the hard one. So probably up there with the criticism, accepting feedback and not taking it as criticism, but willing to be trusted and respected much more than liked is a real challenge, because everybody wants to be liked. But you can be trusted and respected and still liked. You just don't have to be liked all the time. And leadership is really about trust and respect. It's not about being liked. And it's a bit like being a parent. You're not always going to be able to be your child's friend, because at some point you're going to have to be the parent. And being a parent sometimes means doing things that your child doesn't like. But trust and respect in leadership comes from setting clear expectations, having a clear accountability, and then rewarding good performance. And I'm not talking about rewarding just turning up. I'm talking about rewarding performance, that because the expectation has been set and there's clear accountability, once you deliver what's expected and you hold yourself to account, that there should be some reward for exceptional performance. Being trusted and respected will always lead to better and better business outcomes and better personal improvements in yourself. It's a really good way of learning. And that in time actually feeds into a really thriving team and a really thriving business and a really thriving individual. So if you are willing to be trusted and respected more than liked, then you are going to exhibit much higher levels of emotional intelligence. So the sixth characteristic is having a growth mindset. And having a growth mindset really means learning from your mistakes, learning from others, and always asking, how can this be better? And potentially asking, how can I be better? So it's not about your own personal growth, that would be asking, how could I be better? But also asking how the business can be better, how can the team be better? And that all feeds into having a growth mindset. So this circles back to taking feedback as a positive thing because it helps you grow and improve. But having a growth mindset means that you don't get defensive and start taking things personally. It's about embracing and accepting challenges. And as with everything, you know, when we do something for the first time, it's always going to be more difficult and it's going to feel clunky. But as you do it more and more, then you become a master at it. And it takes 10,000 hours to become an absolute master. It's about persisting through obstacles and just not giving up. It's about having the tenacity to know that when something's really hard, you want to give up, but you just know you've got to keep going. It's the 25th and the 26th mile of a marathon, for example. You know, there isn't anybody that doesn't experience pain at that level, but they know that just having to get through that means that you've actually completed what you set out to do. And it's about putting in those 10,000 hours of effort to be a master craftsman. So having a growth mindset means having a go at something and not giving up unless you absolutely hate it. But knowing that there's a level of pain that you have to go through to actually become a master. It's about taking feedback and criticism as an opportunity to grow and improve. And it's about working together and welcoming the successes of others as an opportunity to grow yourself so that you get to experience the benefit of having other people celebrate your successes. It's about the life and work is actually just about more than you as an individual. So the final characteristic is about being optimistic and positive. And good employees are relentlessly positive and optimistic. Now, business owners tend to be optimistic and positive. They're very rarely going to show you their downsides, you know, the days that they have doubts, especially after they've worked a 100-hour week. But good employees, not only are they positive and optimistic, they're not afraid to voice ideas. And like I was referring to earlier, there's no such thing as a stupid idea. And when you're optimistic and positive, you're not afraid to fail, because whilst I hate the F word, if you think of failure as just a series of mistakes until you actually get good and become successful, every single successful person has failed at something. Most of them have failed multiple times, but it's all of those failures that actually lead you to success. So if you're optimistic and positive and you have a problem, then you'll start thinking, how can I solve this? And how do I make sure this doesn't happen again? Which then starts to systemize and process things. And is there another opportunity here? I mean, if this has become a problem, are we looking at it the wrong way? Is there another way for us to actually think about this? So those are the 7 characteristics of a good employee and, in my personal opinion, a good boss. And it might be a nice idea now to just pause the video if you're listening again and go back and look at the marks that you gave yourself and maybe your team and others, and have a look at whether you would remark yourself now, given the description that I've given. And then has anything changed given the view that you might have having listened to a few minutes of the explanation of each of those characteristics? So what I want to talk about really briefly is what happens in real life. So I promised you a case study. And one of the challenges that I had in one engineering company was it was on the outside hugely successful and had 50 plus employees, and they all seemed on the surface of it to be working towards a common aim. The challenge was that ultimately this company was really, really dysfunctional. And when you dug beneath the surface of it, it was like this wreck of an aircraft. So there was the basic body of an aircraft, and you could recognize it, but the company was nearly bankrupt. There were different departments working in silos. Nobody was working together. Nobody knew the numbers. There wasn't a big strategic plan to work towards. There was just some general plans. Different departments were actually working towards different aims, and the harder they all worked, the further away they were getting from the central purpose of the business, which was really surprising because it was it had a really nice leadership team, a really decent leadership team, all of which were relatively new when I joined. And there had been a recognition that this company was kind of slowly disintegrating, but it had great customers. It had employed great people, but each of them were specialists in their own area, and they were working in very, very, very narrow channels. Now, one of the things we had to do because of the potential bankruptcy was we had to resize and reshape and reorganize the organization. And it did mean that we had to make a few people redundant. But because we had to do the redundancies, and it was really difficult to choose who were the people who were going to go, we had to be very careful about choosing the people that we needed to stay. And how we did that was we looked at what an organization who had the purpose that this organization had, and the deliverables and the customers and how they served those customers clearly in mind. We wrote an organizational structure for what needed to happen, what roles needed to happen in the business. And then what we did was we looked at all of the people in the waiting room outside, and which of these people can we slot into each of these roles. And the decision was made not just on skills, but actually on attitudes and aptitudes. Did they get it? Did they want it? And were they capable of fulfilling those roles? Now, this actually led to quite a lot of work, which really led to us asking some big questions. And one of the really big questions that we were asking is, actually, is the reason why all of these people not working together is because we don't have these common goals? And it was not the common goals per se, it was the understanding of the common goals. So the first thing we did was actually define the common goals and make sure that everybody in the team understood them. Now, we also recognized that we all had different experiences, and when you're running in a bankrupt company, then you're literally tripping from one crisis every day to another. So as a group, we actually all got together, and we recognized that we were all sharing the same experiences of not knowing whether we would have a job tomorrow, and not knowing what might happen if the plug got pulled on our funding. So we then all worked together to make sure that we all stayed calm in a crisis, because now we're working more as a team because we understand those goals. We actually sought constant improvement so that we could make the company more efficient. So as we were rescuing it, not only were we looking at new ways of operating, but we were constantly saying, how can we do this better? How can we do this more effectively? And that meant sometimes expecting feedback, and that feedback sometimes being perceived as criticism. But because we were all working as a team and we'd all challenged each other to stay calm, the constant improvements were really, we could accept personal feedback as well as team feedback. And we constantly, every day, said, what needs to happen today to keep the business alive? We were completely action orientated. And having some clear objectives and clear expectations means that we all then started to trust and respect each other. Now, the growth mindset really kicked in with it, not just what needs to happen, but is there a better way? And then finally, we were looking at in terms of being optimistic, was where were the opportunities? Now, after all of that and actually pulling together, it meant that we were now back to being cutting edge. We were working as a team like I'd never experienced outside of my military career. And we were genuinely improving the value. We were working on really high value stuff, improving the outcome of the company. And ultimately that company went on to do really, really good things. But we did go from being an absolute car crash to being a fighter jet. And we did that in a very short period of time. But it took absolutely everybody in the company to contribute. Every employee, every director, and every business owner. So hopefully that's given you some idea of what you can do in your company, whether you're an individual employee, whether you're the business owner, whether you're a team. And if you want to find out a bit more about building high performance teams, there's a booklet that comes along with this talk. It will be distributed with the video, and there's a small introduction at the end. Because what was really great is the Olympics are on right now, which is going to age this video. But I was really lucky to be able to watch the team triathlon, and they absolutely exhibited all of the characteristics of a really high performing team. They brought the 7 characteristics of great teamwork together. And that's me. I'm Christine Nicholson. If you need to contact me in any way, my contact details are on the screen. But thanks for spending time with me. And I'm going to stop now and just check whether there's any questions.
Not from me. Christine Blade is listening, so if she's got any questions. As we said, most people will be listening to this back afterwards, so I guess if they've got any questions, can they contact you via the contact details that you've put up there?
Absolutely, and on my website's on there as well. So there's loads of free resources there. So if anybody wants more information, then please do contact me directly.
Yeah, the comment there from Blade, I don't know whether you've seen that, but she says, thank you, very clear and useful information. She can't think of any questions at the moment. She probably wants to get off and get her lunch or something.
I always think no questions is actually pretty good, because it means that people have either been completely blown away and they're like, oh my God, I don't know what you were talking about, or yeah, that was really clear and I really understood. I'm hoping for the second one.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think it is. And part of the idea of all these talks and so on and so forth is, you know, it's such a big subject, you can't cover it all in 45 minutes, can you? But it's to light a spark amongst these people to look into it more, to, you know, watch more videos like this, to listen to more speakers, read more books, listen to more podcasts, because, you know, you've got to take ownership of your own personal development, haven't you, generally? Because, you know, an employer or a boss, or even if you're running your own business, you've got to, you know, as a general principle, the more you learn, the more you'll earn.
Yes.
The more you'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I knew some of this stuff when I was so much younger, because I would be in a very different place. But,
isn't that a Rod Stewart song?
Sorry?
Isn't that a Rod Stewart song?
Oh yes, yes, yeah. Now I'm showing my age.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I thought it was brilliant. It was really, really useful. It's great content. I hope it does light that spark amongst people, and you know, and we're really grateful for you doing it.
It is my absolute pleasure. So take a look. Send me the link as well when you've got it, because I look forward to.
Yeah, we will do. We send out all the we send out the YouTube video and the slides and the book that you'll send through to us. We send all that out on email and to all the people on the scheme, so that everyone can access it as well. So
no problem. I'll get that sent off to Jenny. I'll do it right now.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers. Thanks a lot, Christine.
Been a pleasure. Take care. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.